The story of Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, is a fascinating narrative that combines ambition, power, and tragedy. Throughout her life, Cleopatra stood out not only for her beauty, but also for her intelligence and political strategy. In this reflection, we will explore 5 key points about her life and legacy. 1. Her intelligence and skills, which made her a formidable leader. 2. The context of her reign as a representative of the Ptolemaic dynasty and her efforts to restore the splendor of Egypt. 3. Her relationships with Roman figures, which played a crucial role in her rise and eventual fall. 4. The reforms she implemented in the administration and economy of Egypt, demonstrating her commitment to the welfare of her people. 5. The tragedy of her suicide and her lasting legacy, which invites us to reflect on the complexity of power and the human condition. Through these points, the multifaceted figure of Cleopatra is revealed, as well as the relevance of her story in understanding leadership and the dynamics of power in ancient times. Cleopatra VII, known for her cunning and diplomatic skills, was a key figure in ancient history who challenged the norms of her time. Although she is often remembered for her beauty, her true legacy lies in her intelligence and ability to manipulate political situations to her advantage. 1. Education and language. From a young age, Cleopatra received a rigorous education, excelling in various fields of knowledge, including mathematics, philosophy, and literature. She became the first ruler of her dynasty to learn Egyptian, allowing her to communicate directly with her people and strengthen her position as a leader. 2. Political skill. Cleopatra used her intelligence to form strategic alliances with powerful figures in Rome, such as Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Her relationship with Caesar not only helped her consolidate her power in Egypt after her father's death, but also allowed her to gain the military support needed to confront her internal enemies. 3. Manipulation of public image. Aware of how her image was perceived, Cleopatra cultivated her representation as a living goddess, aligning herself with Isis, the Egyptian goddess of fertility and motherhood. This not only reinforced her legitimacy as queen, but also enabled her to win the favor of priests and the people. 4. Strategies in war. Cleopatra demonstrated her cunning on the military field by supporting Mark Antony in various campaigns. While their relationship was romantic, it was also pragmatic, as she sought to ensure the stability of Egypt in the face of the growing threat from Rome. Factor intellectual legacy. Cleopatra was not only a political leader, but also an intellectual figure. Her court attracted thinkers and scientists, and she is attributed with contributions in fields such as medicine and alchemy. This highlights her interest in knowledge and her desire to be seen not just as a queen, but as a woman of influence and wisdom. In summary, Cleopatra's intelligence was a crucial factor in her reign. Her ability to navigate a male-dominated world, along with her education and cunning, made her one of the most fascinating and complex figures in history, challenging the stereotypes of her time and leaving a legacy that endures to this day. Cleopatra VII was the last representative of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a family that ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great's conquest. Her reign was marked by an attempt to restore the splendor of Egypt and secure its independence from the growing influence of Rome. Historical context of the Ptolemaic dynasty. The Ptolemaic dynasty began with Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals, who became pharaoh after the conqueror's death. This dynasty was primarily composed of Macedonian Greeks, which created tensions with the Egyptian population, who viewed these rulers as foreigners. to rise to the throne. Cleopatra ascended to the throne in a context of political instability following the death of her father, Ptolemy VII. At the age of 18, she became co-ruler alongside her brother Ptolemy III, who was only a child. From the beginning of her reign, Cleopatra demonstrated her ability to make political decisions and seek alliances. With restoration of Egyptian power, Cleopatra aimed to restore Egypt to its former splendor, which included revitalizing the economy and maintaining the country's independence from Rome. She sought strategic alliances, not only through personal relationships, but also through diplomatic agreements that strengthened Egypt's position in the region. Her relations with Rome. Her relationship with Julius Caesar was fundamental in consolidating her power. Through her alliance with him, Cleopatra managed to regain control of Egypt and reaffirm her legitimacy as a ruler. After Caesar's death, her connection with Mark Antony was also key to maintaining Egypt's relevance on the Roman political stage. Chapter challenges and conflicts. Despite her efforts, Cleopatra faced numerous challenges, including internal conflicts and rising pressure from Rome. Her attempt to maintain Egyptian independence became complicated by Rome's ambitions, and ultimately, her legacy was marked by war and tragedy. Her suicide, alongside that of Mark Antony, signified the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the transformation of Egypt into a Roman province. In summary, Cleopatra VII was not only a fascinating historical figure, but also a leader who fought to restore and maintain Egypt's power. Her legacy as the last pharaoh reflects both the challenges of her time and her determination to preserve her kingdom's independence in the face of growing external influences. Cleopatra VII's relationship with Rome was one of the most significant and complex aspects of her reign, influencing her politics and legacy. Through her alliances with key figures in Rome, Cleopatra sought to secure Egypt's future, though it also made her a target of criticism and disdain. 1. Alliance with Julius Caesar. Cleopatra forged a crucial alliance with Julius Caesar, who arrived in Egypt after Pompey's death. Their relationship was not only romantic but also had significant political implications. With his support, Cleopatra managed to overthrow her brother, Ptolemy III, and consolidate her power as queen. This alliance allowed Egypt to enjoy a period of stability, although her dependence on Caesar also complicated her position. 2. Influence of romance. The relationship between Cleopatra and Caesar was instrumental in shaping the public perception of the queen in Rome. While some viewed her as a manipulative intriguer, others considered her a powerful woman who had managed to attract one of the most influential men of her time. This duality in her image helped define her reputation both in Egypt and in Rome. 3. Mark Antony and the politics of alliances. After Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra aligned herself with Mark Antony, another Roman leader. This relationship was both personal and political, as both sought to strengthen their positions in an ever-changing world. Cleopatra used her relationship with Antony to try to secure more territories and resources for Egypt, but she also faced increasing distrust from Rome. Her discredit and propaganda. As Cleopatra's relationship with Antony intensified, her political enemies, especially Octavian, began to use propaganda against her. The queen was portrayed as a dangerous seductress who manipulated men to gain power. This discredit not only affected her image in Rome, but also influenced the perception of Egypt as a kingdom ruled by a foreign woman. Consequences of the Civil War. Cleopatra's alliance with Antony had disastrous consequences. When the rivalry between Antony and Octavian culminated in civil war, Antony's defeat at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC marked the end of Cleopatra's hopes of maintaining Egypt's independence. The relationship with Rome became a determining factor in her downfall, as her suicide alongside Antony symbolized the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the transformation of Egypt into a Roman province. In summary, Cleopatra's relationships with Rome were fundamental to her reign, marked by strategic alliances and power conflicts. Her ability to navigate such a volatile political environment reflects her intelligence and ambition, but it also illustrates the risks involved in depending on Roman figures for the stability of her kingdom. Thus, her legacy intertwines with the history of Rome, leaving a lasting mark on the narrative of antiquity. Cleopatra VII is recognized not only as a political figure, but also as an active ruler who implemented significant reforms in the administration of Egypt. Her focus on governance and the welfare of her people was key to her success and legacy. Once the administrative reforms, Cleopatra aimed to reorganize the Egyptian administration, seeking to improve government efficiency. She implemented changes in the bureaucracy and redistributed resources to ensure that the most needy areas received support. These reforms helped stabilize the economy and strengthen her control over the country through economic revitalization. Under her leadership, Cleopatra took steps to revitalize the Egyptian economy, which had suffered due to political instability and wars. She encouraged trade and managed to restore prosperity through investment in agriculture and water resource management, both crucial for agricultural production along the Nile. Relations with the people. Cleopatra was concerned about the needs of her subjects, maintaining close contact with different social classes. She made sure to listen to the complaints of peasants and other citizens, which allowed her to gain respect and loyalty. Her ability to connect with the populace was a fundamental part of her strategy to consolidate her power. Horticultural and religious care. Cleopatra showed great respect for Egyptian traditions, identifying herself with the goddess Isis to strengthen her image as a legitimate ruler. She fostered culture and traditions, which helped her gain acceptance from the priests and the general population, securing her place in history as a queen who valued her cultural heritage. The economic challenges and crisis response. During her reign, Cleopatra faced several economic crises, including droughts and food shortages. She acted quickly to address these situations by prohibiting grain exports and ensuring that her people had access to basic food supplies. Her response to these crises demonstrated her leadership ability and commitment to the welfare of Egypt. In summary, Cleopatra VII stood out as a ruler who was not only concerned with foreign policy but also took decisive measures to improve the administration and economy of Egypt. Her focus on the welfare of her people and respect for Egyptian culture made her a key figure of her time, leaving a legacy of leadership and competence in state management. The story of Cleopatra VII culminates in a tragedy that not only marked the end of her reign but also symbolized the decline of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the beginning of a new era under Roman domination. Her suicide, alongside that of Mark Antony, is one of the most poignant and dramatic narratives in ancient history. Once defeat at the Battle of Actium. The turning point in Cleopatra's story was the defeat of Mark Antony at the naval battle of Actium in 31 BC against Octavian's forces. This defeat left Cleopatra and Antony in a vulnerable position, weakening their control over Egypt and exposing them to Rome's vengeance. 2. Desperation and isolation. Following the defeat, Cleopatra and Antony retreated to Alexandria, where they found themselves isolated and surrounded by Octavian's forces. As the situation became increasingly precarious, Cleopatra began to lose hope of regaining her kingdom and defending her legacy, leading to growing despair. Every suicide as a response to defeat. Faced with imminent capture by Roman forces, Cleopatra chose to take her own life. There are various theories about how she did this. Some accounts suggest that she allowed herself to be bitten by a cobra or an asp, while others indicate that she might have used poison. In any case, her decision to end her life is viewed as an act of defiance and dignity in the face of defeat. The death of Mark Antony. Antony's death preceded Cleopatra's. Desperate after hearing false news of her death, he took his own life in an attempt to reunite with her. His tragic end resonates with the story of love and ambition they shared, becoming a symbol of passionate and destructive love. Cleopatra's legacy. Cleopatra's suicide marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the transformation of Egypt into a province of the Roman Empire. Her life and death left an indelible mark on history, turning her into an icon of tragedy and feminine power. Despite her downfall, Cleopatra is still remembered as one of the most fascinating figures of antiquity, symbolizing both the grandeur and vulnerability of women in positions of power. In summary, the tragedy of Cleopatra VII is a tale of ambition, love, and despair that culminated in her suicide and that of Mark Antony. Her story reflects the challenges she faced as a ruler and the impact of her decisions on the history of Egypt and Rome, leaving a legacy that endures in culture and historical narrative to this day. The story of Cleopatra VII is a powerful reminder of the complexity of human nature and the role of leadership in times of turmoil. As the last pharaoh of Egypt, her life was marked by a constant struggle between power, ambition, and vulnerability. Through her alliances with Roman figures and her efforts to preserve the independence of her kingdom, Cleopatra demonstrated herself to be an exceptionally shrewd and strategic woman, defying the norms of her time. However, her tragic end also highlights the inherent risks of power and the consequences of political decisions in a world where loyalty and betrayal intertwine. Her suicide, far from being a sign of weakness, can be interpreted as an act of self-determination and dignity, choosing her fate at a moment when everything seemed lost. Ultimately, Cleopatra's life invites us to reflect on how historical figures, often reduced to stereotypes, are much more than their public images. They are complex beings, motivated by survival, love, and the desire to make a mark on the world. Her legacy, therefore, is not only found on her throne, but also in the narrative of women who continue to fight for their place in history, challenging the limitations imposed by society and leaving a lasting impact that endures beyond their time.